Welcome to the No Soundbites Allowed podcast on the Voss Political Commentary channel. Join us as we delve into the issues that affect our lives with more respect than a headline or a bullet point. Special thanks to our subscribers and advertisers for making this possible. And now, let's start with this episode's revelations. One, two, three. Hello, everybody. I hope everyone can see me there. This is Michael Voss with No Soundbites Allowed. This is our simulcast on Saturday, and it's a little bit late, and I do apologize for that. I know that it's been a very busy schedule, and as we get into the election year, or rather the end of the election cycle for 2018 with the midterm elections, I'm pretty sure everyone might imagine it gets tiring. It gets tiring pretty quick because there's a lot to do. And this has been a very busy week for me. We started off the week over at the Vestal Public Library for the event by the Americans for Restoring the Constitution, the AFRTC. They had their annual event, the Candidate Forum. This was the fifth one they have done, and they had invited many candidates. And so I was over there and I was taping that. And now video of that event, complete video of every candidate, everything that they said, every question that they were asked, and every answer that they provided. We captured all of that and we put that out on the mvass.com, that website, our Voss Political Commentary site. And that was out, and so everyone was able to see that. Then after that, we had an interview with Andrew Hollister, who is the Libertarian candidate for lieutenant governor on the same ticket as Larry Sharp, who's running for governor, who we've interviewed before. Here on the No Soundbites Allowed podcast, had an hour and a half with him. So we got to do that. We were over at, even just recently, we got to cover Howie Hawkins, who's also running for governor. He's the Green Party candidate, a communist, as I found out. And he has very unique views, and he was out trying to promote his run for governor. And we covered him here in Binghamton as well with live video and everything that he had to say. Today, the reason why we're doing this a little bit later than we normally do, not the 12 o'clock, but later, is because I was over at an event in Binghamton at the Greater Binghamton Sports Center, and we were able to cover Congresswoman Claudia Tenney, and she was meeting with various constituents. There were several dozen people at the event, and she was speaking with them, open public forum, and having a conversation with those constituents, and we were able to actually interview a couple of them, notably former mayor of Binghamton, Mayor Richard Bucci, and we had a conversation with him, and we got that on air. And hello, Vic. Vic Furman has joined us. And so I was able to speak with former Mayor Bucci a little bit about why he was putting his support behind Congresswoman Claudia Tenney, a couple of other constituents as well. Got some video of the sports center and some of the young women who are playing soccer there and training, part of the national program and doing a great job. And so we got to cover that. And I also got to speak with Congresswoman Claudia Tenney a little bit before she had to go to another event out in Owego. I believe it was at St. Michael's in Owego, Tioga County. And then I know she's going off to an event in Herkimer County a little bit later today. So we were able to get all that. That's a lot of information. Now, I'm not even covering all of the things that were going on. The Broome County Republican Women's event that happened on Thursday. So many other events. So this is a very hectic time of the year. A lot of events going on, not only in Broome County, but surrounding area. And it's always interesting. And I try to provide as much footage, complete video footage, something that you don't get in the other news media. I'll give you a great example. When I was on Monday in Vestal, in the city, in Vestal, New York, at the Vestal Public Library, we had the news media there. They were there for 15 minutes. On average, the longest one there. All four major news media outlets were there, and they all left within 25 minutes of the start of the event. And then they went out and told people on the news about this event. Well, how can you tell someone about an event that lasts 2 hours when you're there 25 minutes and you leave. And that's at the beginning, the first 25 minutes, and you leave. You didn't hear from State Senator Fred Akshar, and he was speaking at the event. You didn't hear from Andrew Hollister, who's running for lieutenant governor. Didn't get to hear him. You only heard one opening statement by Congresswoman Claudia Tenney, and then they left. Well, there's all the questions that all of the people asked didn't get covered by the major news media. All of the insight, the answers from all of those individuals were not covered by anyone in the major news media, just me. And that, all of it, every single word was put out verbatim so that you could see it and you can make an informed decision when it comes time for the election. It's one of my big peeves, especially in election season, where we see the major news media, they have an agenda. And don't be misguided. They have an agenda. When they spend 25 minutes at an event that lasts 2 hours, when 2 of the 3 major speakers at the event are completely ignored, you're not getting the full story. The media is not telling you what you need to know. They're telling you what they want you to know. And there is a big difference between those two things. And regardless of how you decide to vote, I want you to hear everything. Learn about those candidates. Because if you're just going by the 30-second soundbite on some political ad, if you're only going by the headline on a Twitter, then you don't know anything about that candidate. And you don't know if they're going to actually do anything to help you. There's no way to know. That's why I want to put it out there. Does it take a couple of minutes? Yes, it does. But at least then you're informed and you know what you're voting for and you know what you're voting against, however you want to go, and you know who you're picking. I hate when the major news media makes that decision for you and decides, well, you're essentially what they're saying is you're too dumb to understand what these people are talking about. So here's the 30-second answer because you can't figure it out for yourself. I don't agree with that. I don't believe that. I believe everyone has the ability to understand these issues that affect their lives every day. You're grown adults. You're voters. You have the ability and the right to understand what's going on and what these people are going to do that's going to affect your life forever. And so you deserve to have every minute of it. You know, in the 1950s, when any of the politicians would come out and speak, you would get full coverage of that. Here we are in 2013. Nobody gets full coverage. You get 30 seconds of some news editor's opinion about what you should know. And invariably, that means you're getting their political bias and what they think is a good idea. And you can just, essentially go to hell. That's what it works out to. And I just don't agree with that. So that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. One of the things that it's been a very busy week, and you can check all that out for yourself. Again, the video is there. It is unedited. It is every word they said. Howie Hawkins for the Green Party. If you like communism, well, you can hear everything he had to say. And I have to tell you, I'm just amazed by that individual. You can vote for whomever you want. And yeah, I know he's all about climate change, but really, I listened to everything he had to say. I asked him, and there were actually 3 of us there from the news media, 2 of the major news media stations, and myself. And the video covers everything every question he was asked. There was a private citizen there. There were 7 people in total, separate of the news media, that were covering the event. And you got to hear the questions. One news media outlet didn't even ask a question. They just taped it. One had 1 question for him, which was not significant. And then there were 3 questions that I had that were 2 of them were significant. One was a follow-up of just trying to figure out, is he a socialist or is he a communist? And, Howie Hawkins decided that he's a democratic socialist and then completely debunked the idea of what socialism is and quoted, essentially, Karl Marx, and that's communism. So there you go. And that's fine. I mean, if that's what he believes in, and if you believe that's a good idea to go with communism, fantastic, go for it. Howie Hawkins may be your man. I personally, having lived in a socialist country, actually a communist country, Russia, and having seen what's happened to Venezuela, actually every country that has continued to have any form of socialism, I can't stand by it. It's a horrible idea. It may make you feel good for a couple of minutes, but guess what? It's going to destroy your nation and destroy you. Look at Venezuela, 3 years. It only took 3 years for that to completely go head over heels and just be horrible. So, that's just the nature of it. Now, I see Ron Stafford and Jim Tomatore has joined us, and I'm happy to see you guys. Thank you. And by the way, folks, if you like the evening, doing this later in the day on a Saturday, as opposed to doing it at noon, please let me know. And I can adjust my schedule, whatever works best for the most people, so that we can have these conversations and talk about these issues, especially in this election season. We're coming into October. This is the time where you're going to see the most, or you have the opportunity to find out the most about all of the candidates that are going to be affecting your life. And we need to take that advantage so you know which person you're going to vote for and be informed on why you're going to vote for them or why you're not going to vote for them. And that's important. And so whatever time that works best, I want to make sure I can reach out to everyone. By the way, just in case you're wondering, so far I have interviewed three of the 5 people who are running for governor of New York. I've spoken to Larry Sharpe. I've talked to Mark Molinaro. I've talked to Howie Hawkins. I've talked to 2 of the lieutenant governor candidates. That would be Andrew Hollister and Julie Killian. So I've provided information and articles and video on almost all of these individuals so that you can know what's going on, because most of the major news media won't cover all of them. They've made their selection. I don't care. It's your selection. It's not about me. I know who I'm voting for. But I want you to have the ability to hear these their answers to serious questions about our economy, about how we're going to run the state in terms of Medicare for all, in terms of the ability of the Second Amendment to protect ourselves. That's all important because this is going to affect us forever. And Jim mentions a question. Jim Tonatore says, Mike, I am listening even when Syracuse football is on. That's how important your views are. Well, thank you, Jim. You are great. That's fantastic. That's one of the highest compliments I get. And I'm very happy about that. And I hope to make it worthwhile. But I think it is important and very worthwhile that, we want to be out there and we want to make sure we're picking the right governor and the right elected officials. Jim goes on to mention Mark Molinaro is the next governor for sure. He could be. I can tell you, here's the first thing. And again, people can vote for whoever they want and I believe vote for whoever you want as long as you have a reason for them, whomever you want to pick. Now, I personally don't agree with Governor Cuomo at all. We have a track record here. What does Governor Cuomo bring us? He has brought us about 120,000 people leaving per year. We have 1.2 million New Yorkers that got out of the state. We have higher property taxes because he's kicked out so many people. We have more businesses. We have about 20,000 businesses that left the state and took with them jobs outside of the state, especially in central New York, southern tier. We lost all of that because of Governor Cuomo. We have, there's this whole thing about the SAFE Act. We were supposed to be safer because of it. Well, did you see just what happened over this weekend in Syracuse, Rochester, Binghamton, Johnson City? Does anyone feel safer? Okay, that we were promised that if you went with the SAFE Act, and we've lost more of our rights for the Second Amendment, and we gave that up to the state, and the state said, well, we're going to control more of your choices because you'll be safer. And what did we get instead of that? It's not just, and by the way, anyone who says, well, it's just that one weekend or it's just those events, that's not true. Because you can look up, New York State provides a report. It's called the G.I.V.E.Give report on the 17 major metropolitan cities of New York State. And guess what? If you look at that and it shows you the number of deaths by murders with a firearm, it hasn't changed. That is a steady average. It hasn't changed. The SAFE Act didn't make anyone safer. And people die mostly because of handguns. But that's evil people making evil actions. And guess what? Evil people keep doing that no matter what. So the SAFE Act was a lie. It didn't make you safer. All it did was take away your rights. And it made the illusion of being safer something that you had. And some people were able to sleep better at night, but it didn't help anyone. It didn't do anything. It didn't do any of the things that it was promised to do. And that's a problem. especially when we see Governor Cuomo is now doubling down on this illusion and selling this illusion when he's doing the red flag laws, the red flag legislation, which is coming up in January. You know, Howie Hawkins, I talked to all these politicians, almost none of them know what this is. Cuomo, if he gets reelected, he is looking to take away not only he's going to take away your Second Amendment right, your Fourth Amendment right, your Fifth Amendment right, your 15th Amendment right, and due process. And he's going to take your children. That's what the red flag laws mean. Okay? That it gives someone the ability to say that you're dangerous just because I say so, and let's take all of your guns, let's take your children to punish you without ever breaking a law. That's what Governor Cuomo is looking to do. That's what the Democrats in New York State, it's already passed the Assembly. The Democrats in New York State already say they want to take away your guns because you'll be safer. Except in every state, all documents that show has not made anyone safer anywhere, including Maryland. It doesn't make anyone safer. All it does is take away your firearms, take away your kids, and make you a victim of the government who has punished you without ever breaking a law. That's scary. You don't have to believe me, by the way. I have 120 sources that I put out in an article on the red flag legislation. Read it for yourself. Go through the sources for yourself. Make your own decision. But I guess what? Every politician I've talked to, every member of the news that I've talked to about this, they all come to the same conclusion I do. It's unconstitutional. We should never pass this because it doesn't help anyone. And that's a shame that we have to even have this conversation. By the way, I do want to mention that Bob Seymour is watching, and I thank you for that, Bob. Jerry Morrison is watching as well, and I'm very happy to see you. That's a new person checking us out, as far as I know, and I thank you for that. Dom Constantino, who was with me last week, he came in. He's one of the people, just like yourself, out there watching the show and came on in, and he actually did a program with me on the podcast. I hope everyone got to see that. Very interesting. We agreed on a few ideas. We didn't agree on a few others, and I really enjoy that. It's wonderful to be able to talk to people about their ideas, because that's what this is about. What do you think? Not just what I think, because it doesn't matter what I think. I'm only one person. What matters is what we all think, and let's have that discussion so that we can all get out there. And when we talk together, we get better ideas, we get better laws, we get better legislation and regulation, because we're working together. As opposed to what we see right now is, from the Democratic side, very often we're hearing, well, this is what you're going to do. As in the red flag legislation, as in many of the legislations by Governor Cuomo. What did he say? If you're conservative, get out the state. If you believe in God, if you like the Second Amendment, get out the state. That was what Governor Cuomo said. People are doing it, but guess what? That's horrible. That's horrible. That isn't making good legislation. That's a good dictatorship. And that's a shame. Because that's not what America is about. That's not what New York State is about. You don't get to say, well, if you don't like it, get out. No, it's, I don't like it. I have a reason for it, and I have very qualified reasons. Let's talk about this. Let's make a compromise. Let's do the best for everyone. And Cuomo doesn't agree with that. And that's a shame. That's why I personally think he shouldn't be. And whomever else you want to pick, that's up to you. But he's definitely not a good choice, in my opinion. I do want to say hello to Cheryl Moss, who's watching the program, and I thank you for that. And I see Donna Stafford is here. It's great to see Donna. I saw you recently. I'm glad to see you again. We're having a great time here. And let's talk a little bit more. Now, one of the big things, and as I said, I've seen all the governors. By the way, anyone, if you have any questions, if you're interested in anything, just ask, and I'll be happy to talk about it and answer your questions and get into that discussion. But I wanted to give you a general idea. So that's part of my thoughts on the governor's race for 2018, and it's pretty important. And I'll be happy to go into more detail for the three candidates that I've spoken to and the two lieutenant governors I've spoken to. I can go into more detail about that. I doubt if I will ever get to speak to Governor Cuomo because he just doesn't talk to the public. He just tells us that he hates America. That's about all. And he doesn't want to talk to people or answer questions. And Stephanie Miner, well, she may or may not be able to contact me, but that's on her. But I also wanted to talk about what's been the big news. I mean, that's a lot. And of course, I'll be happy to talk about the event today with Claudia Tenney, who's just in Binghamton, and I just left her, and speaking with her, and also former Mayor Richard Bucci, which was a great event. I was happy to be there and to be able to speak with them. I'll be happy to talk about that, but I also want to talk about Kavanaugh. Now, this is a little tricky, the Kavanaugh case, and Professor Ford. By the way, Brendan O'Neill has joined us, and Kelly Wildener. Hey, guys, it's good to see you both. It's a tough one to talk about. But let me start off with, and I know that's a big subject. It's all for any story that lasts more than 24 hours in the news cycle nowadays, in the cable news cycle, is a big deal. This one is one of the biggest because we're talking about the Supreme Court, we're talking about women's rights, we're talking about a lot of issues that are very sensitive for a lot of people. And I want to say first and foremost, in talking about the Kavanaugh case, one thing that we need to hear more often and say more often is that, one, it's political. This isn't personal. Two, as much as it's emotional, I think we all should say, and we all do believe in standing behind women. No one should be a victim of sexual assault. And anyone who is a victim of sexual assault should be protected. And we should go out there and properly, by law, prosecute those who have committed that sexual assault. We should put them through the legal system and make sure that they are punished for a crime. And there is no excuse for that. I think that's a very important thing to say, and I think it gets lost in all the political discussion about whether or not it's, whether he did it or didn't do it 35 years and all that. It's very important. And for anyone who's out there, you should please pick up, if you have been a victim of sexual assault, pick an advocate, go out there and put out the charges and force that accuser to go through the legal system so they can be stopped. Not just because of you, but to also stop them from going to others. What we see consistently, these sexual predators, the ones who do the sexual assaults, they don't commit this crime once. They usually commit it over and over and over again. Harvey Weinstein, Al Franken, Bill Cosby. These people don't stop until they are stopped. And so it's very important that if you have been a victim, come out, say that, let's get this person, especially when there is the statute of limitations available, so that we can go out there and properly punish them for that crime. I think everyone agrees with that, and we should all agree on that. And that's very important. And I would do anything to help a woman to protect them and to punish that sexual assault. That is an important thing to say, and we need that. And I think that's very important. I think it's missed in the conversation about Professor Ford, about Brett Kavanaugh, and the SCOTUS event. So we need to say that. And if your advocate, by the way, women, if the person you have picked or someone who has been a victim of sexual assault, if your advocate is not moving that forward, if they are not trying to help you, if they are not actively going out there to do everything they can to help bring the person who has committed that assault to justice, pick another advocate. Get someone else to be your advocate and to stand forward, stand for you, and help you through that process, because this needs to happen. Not just for you, but also to prevent any future victims as well. And it's very important, I think, we mention all of these things in this conversation, because I understand it is very, very emotional, and I understand it is very sensitive. But we have to have that as a clear understanding that that is important. Now, going beyond that, and before I say anything else, let me mention, Jim has mentioned, he gave a comment, and I want to mention it. Jim says, discussing the SCOTUS candidate. Wait until we hear FBI investigation. Judicial committee is wrong and short-sighted by not allowing disclosure. People violated may or may not be strong enough to come out. And part of what you said, Jim, I agree with, and part of it I don't. Now, again, this isn't because I don't believe in Professor Ford. I'm very sure that Professor Ford may believe something happened. And I believe that she has the right to come out and make her voice heard. Absolutely. But this event is, by its very nature, political, at its start and its finish. And that clouds the whole thing and makes it difficult. because we've gone way past the time of any kind of potential legal action. Okay, the time frame for legal action to take place is not there. We don't have a pattern. We don't have. Well, let's first start off with, we don't know what happened. None of us do, and we don't know what she said because, Senator Dianne Feinstein has been the worst advocate possible for Professor Ford. She has made this completely political, and that doesn't serve anyone in our nation, no matter who they are, because by hiding this for 7 weeks, for not telling anyone, for not asking any questions, for not bringing this up and making this public, for not addressing this because they were playing a political game, that served no one. No one has been helped in this case because of that. And because Senator Dianne Feinstein has made this a political football for an agenda that senior Democratic leadership wants to prove forward. From day one, they stated very clearly they are looking to stop this Supreme Court nomination. Everything they're doing right now, especially with Professor Ford, is about stopping the Supreme Court nomination, because Democrats think that if they can get to the November elections, they can somehow change the Supreme Court decision. That's what this is about. At the end of the day, that is all this is about. It is not about women. It is not about protecting women's rights. It is not about whether Brett Kavanaugh is right or wrong. It is about a Supreme Court decision. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. And that's a horrible thing. And I'm really sorry that I have to say that. But at the end of the day, that's what it's about. Because of the way the Democratic Party has been portraying this and moving this forward, that's all it's about. And I understand they're coming out and saying, well, they believe her. I'm not saying she shouldn't be believed. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is, how can you tell me that you believe this accusation? You haven't heard what the accusation is. You don't know the details. No one has seen that letter except Dianne Feinstein, and she's not letting anyone see it. That's a problem. Why are we not? And I know that, the Republican Party has gone way too far in saying, okay, we're going to delay, we'll give you as much time as you need. We really need to make a decision here. If this is an accusation, then the accuser needs to come forward, make the accusation. That the person accused needs to defend themselves as best they can, and then a decision is made. Period. That's as simple as it is. It's 40 years ago. There is no proof that we can find that will be available to let someone know whether it's right or wrong. And I'm not trying to say it's right or wrong. The question is there a reason to believe that the Supreme Court justice did this action? And if he did, then does he deserve to be a Supreme Court justice? That's a tough question. All I can say right now is the evidence that's being provided, as far as we know, doesn't support that. The evidence, as far as we know, is saying that this is a political action meant only to cloud and make it very emotional and distract people and delay the process to enact or nominate a Supreme Court justice. That's what's happening here, if we're absolutely honest about it. And the Democrats have used that female, Professor Ford, to promote that agenda. And that's a shame. That's the worst thing that could possibly happen. And I'm very upset with Senator Dianne Feinstein. Very upset with Senator Dianne Feinstein and the rest of the Democrats, including Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, for not addressing the actual problem. This woman came out and she said, here's a letter. I have a question. I have an allegation. Senator Dianne Feinstein did not move that forward, did not give it to the FBI, did not give it to authorities, did not question Brett Kavanaugh, even though she met him on August 20th, even though she had 3 days, 1,300 questions that were given to him. She didn't tell anyone else, any other Democrat who could have asked questions that had meetings with Kavanaugh. She could have advanced this woman's allegation and her question and this inquiry for a month. And she never did that. That is a problem. That's because it's political. And that is wrong. And Dianne Feinstein should apologize. So should Kirsten Gillibrand. They should apologize because they're making this emotional, because they want to cloud people's judgment on their political action. And that's a shame. Now, Jim Tomatori says, it may be, quote, political, end quote. Feinstein did hide this claim. However, it may be true. Yes, I agree. Judiciary has time. SCOTUS does not begin until October 1st. Full disclosure, Clarence Thomas lives in a cloud, so it goes. Well, let's be honest here. Yes, full disclosure, and Professor Ford has been afforded and asked to be able to provide that full disclosure. She has been offered to have private meetings, so she doesn't have to be in front of cameras. She's been offered to be able to do it at her home or any other location throughout the United States. She has been offered to be able to do it in Congress, in the Senate, and to answer questions. That's full disclosure. It's on her. Matter of fact, think about it. If this wasn't so political, you would never get this. You cannot go into any court case and get this kind of treatment. I cannot, if I was charged or accused with something, I cannot go into a courtroom and say, well, I'll go into the meeting on Tuesday, maybe. No, it doesn't work like that. It does not work like that for anyone. They have bent the legal system backwards to be able to give this woman every opportunity to make her case and to be sensitive to her because it could be true. Because it could be true. We don't know if it is or isn't, and I'm not saying it is or it isn't. I don't know enough about it. All I know is she's making an allegation. That allegation doesn't have any corroboration. There's no facts behind it. There are no details that have been consistent in it. That's all I know. That's all that has been able to be known because we haven't heard from her and we haven't been able to get the letter to see what the letter says. So all we can determine is from what we've heard so far, what has been leaked out by Democrats, because Republicans don't have any of this information. All the information we have are coming from Democrats. They're leaking this information, which they weren't supposed to do. A woman asked for her to be, her name to be held back and that she didn't want to go public. Democrats leaked that. In particular, Senator Dianne Feinstein and her team leaked that. That's the only source it comes from. So it's either coming from Professor Ford or it's coming from Senator Dianne Feinstein. That's the only two sources. They had the information. No one else had it, which again makes it political, the way that they leaked this information that no one else had and no one else could know about. That's sad. That's sad. That's abuse of that woman, Professor Ford, again. Assuming that she had this incident happen exactly as being alleged, which is a question, then this is an abuse. And it's wrong. And you know what? It's horrible. And it's very upsetting. It's very upsetting. I don't know. Okay. Okay. This is going to be a little weird, folks. I need to take a quick break real quick because I just got back from a meeting and I haven't had a chance to rent it ahead. So I'm going to be right back. I apologize. You're going to see dead air for a second. Hang on. All right. Sorry about that, folks. I thank everyone who did stay on with me for staying on. And like I said, I had rushed back from the event earlier today, didn't stop, came right here to make sure that I could speak with everyone. So please, thank you for your patience with me as I just had to, nature called. So, and now my battery's short. Okay, that's good too. And Jim mentions, well, I know how that goes. So yeah, Jim had to go too. And by the way, Adam Kipp has joined us as well, and he's been here with us for a little while. Now, I'm sorry. This is very upsetting to me. And I think the focus amongst most of the news media has nothing to do with justice, has nothing to do with trying to protect the victim or to help advance this cause, this question. It's very political. It's about playing with emotions to be able to get in a political outcome. That's all this is about. This is about stopping a Supreme Court nomination. That's it. If this was actually about women and their rights and protecting them, then Dianne Feinstein would have said something in August and said, hey, either ask a question of Brett Kavanaugh or bring this up to the FBI, legal authorities, someone, and say, hey, we need to address this if she was actually trying to be an advocate for that woman. And she should be. because that's what we need to do. We need to be advocates for women who are making these sexual assault claims and saying, hey, I need to stand up for this. And let's see how we can advance this, especially when we say, okay, and we want to be sensitive to the fact that this is an emotional, difficult kind of circumstance. We have to try and be as sensitive as we can, but let's move that forward. Let's be their advocate. Not let's hold on, wait a couple of weeks, and then when it's politically advantageous to us because every other avenue we've used to achieve a political goal has failed, now we're going to use this woman and this issue to get that advanced. I'm sorry. No, that's wrong. That is wrong on every level. And all it does is take away the credibility of the issue and the person making the allegation. Whether it's true or not, it doesn't help them. In fact, if it is true, it is even worse that Democrats and Dianne Feinstein have done this, because that is victimizing the victim again. And that is like the worst thing you could possibly do. Let's assume that she is absolutely correct. Then Dianne Feinstein is doing the absolute worst thing that you could possibly do in this situation. The very best thing she could have done is share this document amongst the senators, keep it private or not, and ask the questions and move the investigation forward. That's what you do. But you don't hide this. You don't keep it in your back pocket going, well, if we don't get anything else on this Supreme Court justice, then we'll throw this out here with the kitchen sink and use that to try and get a political gain that we want. If you're being an advocate for your constituent, then you are an advocate for your constituent, and you don't back away from that. Don't play a political game with it. That is wrong. That is absolutely wrong. And I don't agree with it. And I don't care if it's, if Kavanaugh is guilty, then Kavanaugh is guilty, period. I don't care. If he's guilty, then he doesn't deserve the position he has. If he is not guilty, then he doesn't deserve to be put through the ringer with him and his family. There is still justice, and justice is not defined by, feedback there. Justice is not defined by what's popular. Justice is defined by the legal system that we have and everyone abiding by it and being given the proper opportunity to make their case. And if we're not doing that for a victim and for the accused, then we are actually picking sides. And if we're picking sides, then that means that eventually everyone is screwed, because one day you will be the victim or you will be the accused. And if the system is rigged, it doesn't help any of you. And that's a problem. I have a big problem with that. We have to take that into account. By the way, if you're wondering what I'm doing, my battery's about to die, so I'm trying to extend the battery life while I'm talking with everyone. So I hope you can bear with me on that. I know this is like a little bit of a mess today because I'm trying to do so many things. It's election season and everything goes a little crazy for me as I try and keep up with all of the election news and all the events that are going on. And I see Nancy Maxon has joined us. She's a new voice. Hello, Nancy. I'm glad to see you here and joining us today. And James Ecca has joined us as well. And James is actually a good friend. He's up in Utica. I know that for a fact. And James has been working on the No Downtown Hospital movement, and I'm glad to see him here. He's very much an advocate and been very instrumental in letting people know about the Emailgate incident that's going on, where we have certain elected officials who have gone behind the backs of the public to advance a political agenda without being able to take care of the public at all. So it's kind of like what we're talking about here with Kavanaugh. We have politicians who are doing things for their political gain, no matter what it costs the actual constituents. And that is wrong. I don't care if it's Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter to me. Conservative, libertarian, I don't care. It's wrong. And we need to hold them accountable. At the end of the day, Dianne Feinstein should be held accountable for the way she has done this, whether or not Kavanaugh is nominated or not, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if Professor Ford is guilty, is telling the truth or not. Dianne Feinstein, no matter what, should be held accountable because she has done a disservice to her constituents at the end of the day, and has done a disservice to women everywhere and the legal system altogether. So no matter what, she's got the problem, and that's where the source of the problem has come from. Now, and Jim says, and Jim, I'm loving the fact that you're very involved in this. I love taking everyone's questions. So Jim says, if I can get this up here, Feinstein should have reported all she was aware of during Obama administration. The Republican Senate should have followed up his SCOTUS pick to advance, although political. So who has the white hat in all of this? There is no white hat in all of this. Jim, let's be honest. There is no white hat. The way this is done, there is no winner in this. Not the public, not women, not Republicans, not Democrats, not Professor Ford, not James Kavanaugh. Nobody wins. This is a lose, lose, lose. We have disrupted, we are destroying our legal system. You know, they're trying to say that the accused should speak before the accuser. That is wrong. We're watching allegations that have no proof and no consistency, no corroboration, decades after the fact, are being used to try and punish someone, rightly or wrongly. They're being used to punish someone without any justification. That is not right. We are destroying our legal system. We're looking at politicians who are abusing, there is no other way to say it, they're abusing their constituents for a political gain. That's wrong. And Republicans who have at this point been trying to do the right thing by trying to say, let's get more information, let's actually hear this so we can actually make some kind of a choice, no matter what that choice may be. Guess what? They're being beat up on because it's emotional, and therefore all we hear from the other side is, you're evil for not believing this woman. No one said no one believes her. We're saying, let's hear what you have to say. But they're evil for that. And because of that, they're getting beat up. There is nobody who wins in this scenario. There is nobody who walks away from this and says, oh, I'm so happy this happened this way. Nobody. There is no white hat in this. Everybody loses. Most of all, the public. Because we have a change in our legal system that's going to affect the next Supreme Court nominee and all of them for the rest of our lives, possibly the way we look at our legal system. And we have created this system. We have gone so far as to say that there is a reality that allegation without any verification is equal to punishment. Allegation in the public arena with the news media means that you are guilty and therefore should be punished without any proof whatsoever. That is the worst thing you could possibly do. That is the worst thing that could possibly happen. Being judged by public approval. I mean, there is nothing that stops someone. Literally tomorrow, I'm 50 years old. Someone could come out tomorrow saying, well, I knew Mike in high school, and Mike in high school did whatever. I don't know. I could have had a Nazi flag near me. I could have talked to some white supremacists. I could have they can allege any kind of sexual incident, anything at all, and destroy my life at this moment because the public, because there are some Democrats and some in the news media who don't like the fact that I do what I do, and that will be enough to destroy my life. And at this moment, the way our system is set up, that would be okay. And that's wrong. And that can happen to any woman out there as well. Let's be very clear. This same system can be used against women as well as men. This is wrong. And that's why I'm so upset about it. And that's why I'm so upset at Senator Dianne Feinstein. Not because I believe or disbelieve Professor Ford. It's because what is being done is damaging to our nation and to her constituents. Absolutely. Now, Frank Montecalvo has said the highly politicized Senate Judiciary Committee is not set up to afford substantive due process in determining the veracity of an accuser's statements. Our system of justice handles sexual assault claims in local criminal courts or civil courts if damages are sought, where there are layers of procedures and appeals to protect the rights of both accused and accuser. The Senate Judiciary Committee is improperly infringing on the territory of local courts and denying Judge Kavanaugh fundamental fairness. You are partially correct. And the problem is, at 35, 40 years after the fact, there is no court case. It would never get to court. It can't. The accusation is beyond the limits of time and therefore would be thrown out because at 40 years, no one's going to properly remember and there's no way to verify any of the information. There's no way. We don't know what address. We don't know what date. We don't know what time. We don't know if it happened or did not happen. There is no way to prove that it did or did not happen 4 decades after the fact. It's just, you can't. So while you're correct, this is not an FBI matter. It isn't, because it's not federal. This is a local court issue. It should have been brought up there. Since it cannot be brought up in local courts because legally it doesn't exist, and our legal system would not ever run this court trial, because it can't be an FBI matter because it's not federal. It has to be, because it's an allegation against a Supreme Court justice, it must be we have to address it. And part of that addressing it is giving the accuser a chance to make her case known, and then allow the accused to be, Judge Kavanaugh, to have his opportunity to make his statement. And then we just have to go with that. It is nothing more than a he said, she said at this moment. It can't be anything more than that because it's 4 decades old. And it can't even be that because of the way that Dianne Feinstein has put this together. It is nothing but politics at this point. And it's not fair to anyone. Like I said, it's not fair to anyone at any level. And it can't be. James Ecka mentions, we're going back to the days of burning witches at the stake. What the hell is going on in our country? The Democrats are making a mockery of our judicial system. In this case, absolutely, James. You're right. This is a ridiculous situation, and it is very political, and it is being done by Democrats. And they may think it's a wonderful idea today, except you're setting a precedent that will be used against you tomorrow. And you're right. James goes on to say it's mob rule. And it is kind of a mob rule. It's an emotional mob rule. It's law and legislation by emotion for a political gain. And that is the worst thing you could possibly have, because it always works out being wrong. And eventually, whomever is making the accusation, whoever's benefiting today, will not benefit tomorrow, and it will be used against them. And this is going to be horrible. There is going to be a Democrat, and we've seen this. And I if you go back, I've had podcasts on this. I've had articles on this. I didn't agree when Senator Al Franken was removed from office because of an allegation. Not that he shouldn't be removed, and not that he was innocent. What I'm saying is Al Franken should have had, that was something that was recent and could be decided in a courtroom. He should have been taken to the courtroom and had that entire legal system go forward. And when he's proven guilty, as I believe he was, then yeah, absolutely strip him of everything, because he's been, or at the very least when he got charged and arrested, then we could say, okay, well, you are supposed to be held to a higher standard as a senator. You've been charged with a serious crime. You must then resign. I can agree with that. But just because someone made an allegation, no matter how well-founded that or factual that allegation is, you do not get to say, well, the allegation equals punishment. That is wrong. Because no matter how you want to look at that, an allegation is just an allegation. It may or may not be correct. It may or may not be legal. And our system doesn't depend on how you feel or what you accuse. It has to do with what is just. There's an entirely big difference, and that's the problem. Again, I was speaking on WUTQ on Monday about this, and one of the hosts there, Jay Ayalo, was speaking to Rocco Luduca and they were using an example. What if someone's accused one of them of being a neo-Nazi? They're not, but what if someone made the accusation and said that 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when they were in high school, they were a neo-Nazi at that time? Doesn't matter that nothing in their life has to do with it. It doesn't mean that anything's going on about that, but they were accused of that. Should that destroy their lives going forward? That's the situation we have right now. And going forward, if this isn't held properly, it will be that. And that's why I believe that the Republicans have really gone about this wrong. You set one date, you go with that date, and you say to them, this is the date. Come out, make your case. We'll do it privately if you want, to protect your privacy and to give you some shield from the public. But you make the allegation, we review that allegation, and it's done. That's what should happen, not this continuous, well, let's pick another day, let's pick another day, let's play with this political game or that political game. We have these conditions or those conditions. Our legal system doesn't have you don't get conditions. You don't get to pick the dates. You do it or you don't. Name another please name another person who has gone up for a meeting with the Senate or even the House of Representatives where they were able to pick the date, who they could speak to, what questions they could be asked. You just don't see that. You don't do that. Not at Senate hearings, not at congressional hearings. It's wrong. And they don't get to choose or punish people for things that are not crimes. You just don't get to do that. That's wrong. This is a fundamental destruction of our system. Remember, it's guilty until proven innocent, not, well, I made an allegation, so you must be guilty. Or the newspaper and the news media are getting lots of headlines for saying that you're guilty, so you're guilty. Or some political party is saying that you're guilty, so therefore you must be guilty. Are you insane? That is the worst legal system you could ever have. Banana republics don't have legal systems that work that way because it's just so insane. But Jim Tonatore has mentioned, he says, you are correct. When politics win and full disclosure is not allowed, society loses. I agree. Again, should have the Republicans majority disallowed the Obama candidate? I'm going to answer that in 1 second, and I didn't forget it. Blanche Truesdale is with us, and so I wanted to thank her for being here. And Frank Montecalvo says, if the process is not fair to anyone, the Republicans on the Judiciary Committee should grow a spine, not entertain it, and be able to explain why they cannot entertain it. Well, I've kind of made that case, and I agree with you. And Rocco Loduca, who I was just speaking about from WUTQ, is on here. And Rocco, I'm glad to hear you. You know, I always enjoy having conversations with you. And I agree with you, Rocco, on this case. Now, I do want to answer Jim's question because that's what I'm here for. And Jim, you said, again, should the Republican majority disallow the Obama candidate? And the answer is yes. Now, let me explain why. Because there are certain things that are similar and many things that are not. In the case with President Obama, and there was a Supreme Court justice that was available to be nominated. The difference there is there was a presidential race imminently available that year. And so the public had the ability to pick a new president who would then be able to pick the Supreme Court justice. And remember, at the time, that was expected to be Hillary Clinton. It was expected to be Hillary Clinton. But regardless of who was expected, the public was about to pick the next president in transition, and that was the person that was going to have that choice. Is that correct? Yes, and it has been done before. Does it happen a lot? No, it's very rare. The last time that opportunity even came up was 60 years prior. So, yes, there is a precedent for this in our legal system, in our executive branch, and our legislative branch for how that's supposed to be handled. And the answer is, when it's a presidential election, you go to the next president. You delay and let that next president, whomever the public picks, to be able to make that choice. And at the time, that meant it wouldn't be Obama, it would be Hillary. Because that's what we believed at that time. But even so, the precedent says it's the next person, period, whoever that next person is. So yeah, it was correct. In addition, why is it different now? We're not picking a president. We're picking a midterm. The president has stayed exactly the same. Oops, I kind of screwed up the wrong thing. That hasn't changed. The president isn't changing in this election. The only thing that's changing are some of the members of Congress and Senate. That doesn't change the government. And it doesn't change the person who would pick the nominee, which is the president. So again, the power doesn't change. It's the same person. So even if Congress changes, it's still the president. It's still the president's choice. Remember, this isn't the Senate's choice. The Senate doesn't get to pick who's going to be the Supreme Court justice. The president does, no matter what president that is. The Senate is an advocacy. They give their voice on it, and they approve of it, but they don't get to make the choice of who's going to be the nominee. That's not how it works. So again, I hope that answers your question for you, Jim. Why is it different? Those are the reasons why. Because it's the same president not going into an election, and the legal precedent has already been established, and they were following it. So there is a difference there. And I know this is a very sensitive issue. And again, I want to say it once again. I believe strongly that every woman, if they have been a victim, or any person has been a victim of a sexual assault, please come out, let it be known. Let's use our system to punish that person who has committed that sexual assault. Let's put them through the system, convict them, and punish them as they should be, so that they do not go out and continue that process and harm other individuals. Let's prevent that from happening. And I want them to be supported. And don't think that what's happening right now in our Supreme Court, in the Senate, is an example of what happens. It isn't. That's an example of what happens when we don't go through and trust women and support them and actually try and convict sexual assault perpetrators, when we turn it into a political game. That's what's going on in the Supreme Court right now. But that has nothing to do with the law and the legal system and what should be happening or what shouldn't be happening. It's not. I strongly believe in protecting women from these horrible individuals, and we have to do everything we can for that. And trust me, if the person you have gone to and they're not supporting you, they're not giving you that chance to have your day in court and to punish that person who allegedly has committed that sexual assault, then you know what? Find another one and keep moving forward, because that's the right thing to do. But this political game is not the example of what's supposed to be happening or what normally does happen. And I hope it doesn't take away women from moving forward, or anyone who's been sexually assaulted from being able to move forward and to try and seek justice. I hope it doesn't. I truly do. And I hope it's making sense to people where I make that line, what the difference is, and why I say this is political, and that it's not an actual case that needs to be adjudicated or can be adjudicated. It's something completely, this is a completely political event, and it's sad, and it's wrong. And Dianne Feinstein seriously should be held accountable for all of this. She has made this a problem. She has made this worse and done less for her constituent than anyone else. She has made this a mess and done a disservice to her own constituents and to women in general, because she's turned this into a farce. This is a legal and it's a nightmare. And the consequences of it affects millions upon millions of people who aren't even born yet. And it's horrible. And it's sad. And I disagree with it. I disagree with it completely. And that's regardless of whether, Kavanaugh is guilty or innocent. And whatever my personal feeling is on it, doesn't matter. It still stays exactly the same. She's done a disservice no matter what. And it doesn't matter if I think if they're right or wrong, it doesn't matter. This is a disservice, and this is political gamesmanship of the worst sort to be able to get votes. These are the cheap votes. These are the emotional votes that are based on not thinking anything through, not trying to deal with the consequences, not evaluating truth or non-truth or any kind of facts. It's not even a discussion. She hasn't said anything. I hear a lot of people, a lot of Hollywood and a lot of political people are saying, well, I believe her. Fantastic. I'm not saying that you shouldn't believe her. What I am saying is that legally, that's not the factor, and that's not what's being discussed. And there's a big difference there. And I actually don't know. I can't say I believe or disbelieve her at this moment, because I don't know what she has to say. She hasn't actually said anything. We haven't seen any of the documents. We don't know what's going on. You can't make a decision. You can't tell me either of them, Kavanaugh or Ford, are honest or true or correct, because we don't know what any of them have said. They haven't said anything yet. You can't determine whether they're honest and true or correct based on not hearing from either of them is hearsay. It's a guess. And you can't say you're correct. We need to hear from both of them. I absolutely agree with that. We also need to recognize that this has become a political farce, and it has nothing to do with whether, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's true or not, because it's not about that. This is about a delaying tactic to get a political gain and an agenda. And that's sad, because that's a disservice to constituents. That's a disservice to women. And I don't agree with that. And it doesn't matter whether it was a Democrat or Republican do it. It doesn't matter. It's wrong. It's just wrong. And I think we should all be able to agree with that. And we should emphasize to Senator Dianne Feinstein and the Democratic Party that using constituents and anyone like this is wrong and should never be done. And never do this again, ever. When you get someone who makes an accusation and you believe it is credible, then you move it forward through the legal system, through the judicial system, through the Senate system, and you move that forward as an advocate of your constituents. And you ask the questions and you let other people know to protect that individual, all the future people that may be affected, and our system of government. You move that forward. You don't play political games with it, because all you get is what we have right now, which is a circus that is dividing our nation, and harming everyone. No one wins. No one wins when this happens. Oops, my microphone's acting up here. Mostly because I smacked it just now. So that's my point on that. And I don't know. Please, I know there's many women who are watching this, many men who are watching this, and don't be afraid. If you think I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. Just go, Mike, you're wrong. I don't agree with you. You completely missed the point. Maybe I have. Maybe there's something I don't understand about this. And I'm not saying that I am the brilliant genius who's figured it's all out. I am saying that we need to talk about this. And maybe I have it right, maybe I don't. I did see Jim mentioned, good point. Thank you, Jim. And James Zecco mentioned, gotta go, Michael. Great job with the broadcast. And I thank you, Jim, for listening in. I always enjoy having you here. And maybe I'm right. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, who knows? Jim mentions, Mike, you're wrong. Do not smoke. Okay, for you, Jim, I'm going to hold off smoking. There you go. And thank you for lightening it up, because I know it's a serious subject. But, and I want everyone to know, I'm not trying to decide whether Professor Ford is correct or not correct. I'm not saying that Judge Kavanaugh is right or not right, because that at the end of the day isn't for me to decide. And it's not really possible for us to decide. It's 4 decades after the fact. There's no way we're going to ever know. What I am saying is there is a bigger issue and a bigger problem here. And that is using constituents in just like a tool to achieve a goal that is very partisan in nature, that has no benefit to anyone except that political agenda. That is always wrong. And we're not hearing the news media, MSNBC, CNN, even Fox, we're not hearing people say that is the problem. At the end of the day, that's the problem. That's the big issue here. That's what's really going on. That is what was really being fought about here. It may be we have all this other distraction in the foreground, making us think of it in a different way. But at the end of the day, that's what's really going on in the background, I believe. And not everyone does. Some people do. Oh, and Donna says that she does agree with me. Oh, I'm glad. It's glad to know that there is something, but I understand not every woman's going to agree with me, but I think it's very important. And even if you don't agree with me, even if you don't agree, take the opportunity to think about it. Think about what I'm speaking about here. Take away the emotion. Take away the preconceived ideas that all men are bad and evil. And I know I'm a man who's been making this conversation, but take away that. Make me a woman. Make me a non-gender, whatever you want to call it. Take that all away and look at what I'm talking about and the key thing that I'm speaking about, the abuse of a constituent for a political gain. And at the end of the day, whether you agree or not with Professor Ford, what I'm talking about is completely separate and is very important. And if you can see what I'm speaking about there, that's the thing that we have to address. Because I guarantee you it's not going to be the last time that we see this. It's not going to be the last time that this is going to affect some elected official. And eventually it's not going to be the last time that it's going to affect you and me. Not just in whatever justice is assigned to the Supreme Court and makes decisions going forward. Not only a politician who holds an office and continues to hold it, make laws in our nation, but eventually it's going to go to our courtrooms. And or one day you're going to wake up, look at Facebook, and someone's going to accuse you of these allegations, and you're going to be affected. And that's going to be a problem. I mean, that's the thing that I fear the most. I'm a public figure, and I think there's a few people out here who are on the program, some of them elected officials, some of them members of the news and press. And I think we all have the same fear. One day we're going to wake up and someone's going to make an allegation about us. Not because it's true, or even if it is true, someone's going to make an allegation and we're going to be judged based on that allegation, no matter if it's right or wrong. And we're going to lose our lives. We're going to lose our livelihood, our homes, our families. We're going to lose everything just because someone made an allegation. That's terrifying. And we're seeing that more and more and more. And it's affecting more and more regular people. At the moment, it's just with politicians or people who are in the public figures like myself and other members of the press and the news, actors and so forth. But it's becoming very common. And it's going to start affecting people when they have divorces, or when they get married, or when they're going in for job interviews. It's going to destroy people's lives. And Donna says, would allegations against a female nominee by a male have garnered as much attention? I don't think so. And I think you're right. And again, that goes to the fact that it's completely unfair and biased in what's being done and the emotion that's put behind it. Again, that's why I say anyone who has a sexual assault. Anyone. But again, if we're judging people based on an allegation, an accusation, with nothing else behind it, and it's being put out there just to get a political gain, we have a problem. And that problem is far bigger than everything else. And I see Greg has joined us. And Greg, you're joining us just about at the end, actually. I've been on. I just got back at 4. And I see it's 5:45. I got on about 4:30 here because I had been at an event with Claudia Tenney, and once I'm done with this, I'm going actually to start editing that video and to put it out there so people will again have the opportunity to have an actual valid, complete thought of what was said by a politician that's going to be involved in an election, so that you can actually make a choice, that you can actually know what's going on. Because that's very important, and that's why I do this. I lose money every year. Believe it or not, folks, I lose money every year that I've been doing this. I get no donation. I love donations, but I don't get them. I would love to get a grant. I can't. I'm not a nonprofit. I just lose money every year. But I do this because I believe it's important. You deserve to know the facts, to hear people speak, not in some kind of little soundbite, not 2 words out of a 2-hour event, but to actually know what they actually said. And I think that's very important, so that you can elect the right people. Because the more people know what they're voting for and or against, the better we have as a country. That's just the ultimate answer. That's just the answer. Otherwise, you wind up in situations like in New York State where, Governor Cuomo gets elected and he goes, I'm not corrupt, except everybody around him is corrupt and gets thrown in jail. And we have people like Governor Cuomo where they say, oh, you know what, I don't like you, so get out of my state, and then destroys the state around us, increasing the amount of debt, increasing the amount of taxes, crushing the number of businesses that are created and people who are able to get those jobs, because he said, well, just follow my slogan. I got a 30-second ad. I love New York. Yay! Except he says he doesn't. He doesn't love New York. He doesn't love New York. He doesn't love the United States. But his ad said he loves us. Does that mean we should vote for him? Because his ad said he loves us, except he himself said he doesn't. He says he never thought America was great. But his ads say he thinks it is. Which one's more important? That ad that he is highly promoting, or what he actually said, which he's trying to hide? That's why I do what I do. Because what he said is far more important than what he's putting out as an ad. Because what he has done is far more impactful to our lives than what the ad is that he's putting out there. There's an old saying in Russia that if you have to advertise it, it isn't good. In America, that's not entirely true. It's a Russian saying. But there is some truth to it, especially when it comes to politics. The more you have to advertise it, I said this in 2014 when I was running for elected office for Congress, and I said it in 2016 as well, that, if you have to spend, when you're telling the truth, you don't need a lot of money. When you're trying to sell a lie, it costs a ton of money. And we say this over and over again. There's a reason why Andrew Cuomo spent $25 million on a primary. And it wasn't because he was telling everyone the truth and he wanted them to know that. Now, that isn't supported by the facts and the actions that he took. It's just not. But that's just something I was thinking of. But in the last 10 minutes here that we have together, by the way, does everyone prefer this to be done later in the day? Or do you prefer it at 12 to 1:30? Or do you prefer it for me to do this at like 4 to 5:30 or even later? It's up to you, folks. I want to work with you on this, especially as we're in October and we're going to be talking about the election and how that's going to be affecting us and the issues that are affecting us so that we can make the best decisions and talk to our friends about it. I always want to hear what you have to say, so do let me know. And I always love your comments and your questions. And you can always check out the No Soundbites Allowed podcast because I do that every week, and it can be lots of fun. And Dom Constantino was with us last week, and he's just a regular listener like everyone else. He doesn't do politics. I do. He doesn't. And he was on the show, much like Felicia Mitchell, who was on, and she joined us a little while ago. She has come on, and Dan was on here as well, one of my friends who's a musician, and he was talking with us. So I always love to have everybody here because it's so important. And it's so critical to be able to have that conversation because none of us are absolutely correct, but a lot of us have all the pieces, and when we put them together, we get a far, far better country, a far, far better government, and that's important. So, but in the last 9 minutes now, and I'm fighting the urge to have a cigarette right now. What else are you guys thinking about? Mic issues? On and off, yes. I've had a couple. Can you hear me all right? I know that part of it may be Facebook, and they're doing a lot of censorship on me lately. They have done a lot to hide my pages, to hide my posts, to deny me the ability to send out or to do advertising and promotion. They are doing a horrendous job of censorship. Well, not horrendous. They are censoring me. And yes, they are making it bad. And if you're having a mic, if you're hearing it badly, if the microphone doesn't sound clear, that's not my end. I'm listening to it and it's coming across 5x5. It sounds perfect. It means that Facebook is playing with the system again. And Facebook is stopping it. Once again, they don't like to have conservative thought or thoughts that they don't approve of. Kind of like Google, they changed their algorithm so people like myself are harder to find, which is why it's so important when everyone is here and listening and sharing it with your friends and letting people know about the No Soundbites Allowed podcast and letting them know about my website, mvass.com, or the Voss Political Commentary. It's important that you guys put that out there because Google is trying to make sure I can't be found. Facebook is trying to make sure I can't be found. Twitter is trying to make sure I can't be found because I am a Republican. And I'm one of the most terrifying things, I think, to Facebook and Twitter and Google. I'm a black Republican who's Hispanic, and I know what I'm talking about, and I do my homework, and I've been doing it for 12 years, and I talk to all of the politicians, and I provide people with facts and my understanding of the facts, and they just, they don't like that. They like to make sure that people can't hear that because they want to promote their idea, which I'm not against. If they want to promote an idea, fantastic, but don't stop me from being able to promote mine. They can say whatever they want. I want to be able to say what I want. And then people can choose whatever they decide. I think that's the way it's supposed to be. I'm an absolutist when it comes to the First Amendment. Other than someone being harmed, you should be able to say whatever you want to say. And if you don't agree with me, go out there and say what you want to say. Period. Say what you have to say. Don't censor people. Don't pick and choose who gets to say what and when and whether you like it or not. That's not how it works. That's not freedom. Freedom is I get to say what I want to say. You get to say what you want to say. And anyone else can either listen to us or not listen to us or listen to one or the other and do whatever they want. That's freedom. And that's why our country is great. And that's why we have an internet. That's why we have the growth of our nation. You don't get any of that if you have, name the dictatorship that's great. Name a great dictatorship that has lasted through the years and led the world and created reforms and new scientific discoveries. You just don't. Name that socialist nation that's helped the world and improved it. You can't, because they don't exist. Tell me when censorship has made things better for people, when censoring who can say things and what they can say has helped to make anything better for the world. Because I can't. But Facebook and Twitter and Google think that they do have that answer. And that's kind of terrifying. It's kind of terrifying because it doesn't match what they're selling people the idea that you're free and that you can do what you want to do. But what they're doing, what they're doing is entirely different, more of a dictatorship because they think they're smarter than you. And I don't agree with that at all. And I see Michael Marshall is watching as well. Thank you, Michael. You're coming in at the end in the last 5 minutes here, but I'm glad that you're here, and I appreciate it, and I thank you for being here with us. I know this is a little bit later than I usually do, as I mentioned before, but I was at an event earlier today, and I'll be working on the video on that right after I get done with this, and I'll also eat dinner. I haven't eaten yet, but I'll eat dinner and take care of all that in just a few moments. But in the last 5 minutes here, is there any other thought, anything else I can answer for people or anything else I can help with? Anything that anyone's... How does everyone think about this? Have you enjoyed this episode? You can give me a thumbs up, a like, whatever. People, have you enjoyed listening to me? Has this been a good episode? Do you like the time that it's been done? Leave it in the comments or write directly to me and let me know. Michael Marshall mentions, how can people be free when they are only allowed to hear one side of a view? Oh, viewpoint. Oh, excuse me. I misread that. How can people be free when they are only allowed to hear one side of a viewpoint? Well, yeah, that's not called freedom. That's called compelled speech. Okay, which I am very much against. It is compelled speech, not because you're told this is all that you can say or this is all you can think. It's compelled because you don't have a choice. You don't know, and you're not allowed to know anything else. You can't say that you're going down the right path if you don't know there's another path to go down. It's the only path that you know. It's the only one that's available to you. You can't make a choice. You can't make a choice if you don't have an option B. That's compulsion. And that is horrible. That is wrong. That is dictatorship. That's totalitarianism. It's not freedom. It's exactly the opposite of freedom. When Google and Facebook and Twitter, who have admitted this, by the way, they've admitted it. Twitter admits that they have an algorithm that has hidden 600,000 Republicans and conservatives. That is a fact. I didn't make it up. That's the CEO of Twitter who has admitted that this month. It's not that I don't know that there are hierarchies in the way that Facebook does censor people. The COO of Facebook has admitted that in Congress. These are facts. They are actively censoring people and determining who can be heard and how they can be heard. They are doing it. Google is out there with algorithms that determine what kind of things you find when you go out and you're searching for any kind of term. They help determine what you're going to see first, or what you can find and what can be heard. They are doing that. That is compulsion. And that is not freedom. That is the worst thing you could possibly do. And that's wrong. And I thank you, Cheryl. Cheryl says, great broadcast. Thank you. I try. I really, really do try. I do a lot of homework before I get on with you guys. So I'm glad that you're enjoying it. And I hope that you come back week after week. You check out some of the other podcasts that I do, that you check out my Voss commentary, Voss political commentary, where I write the articles, where I do interviews with all kinds of politicians throughout the central New York area, and sometimes even beyond, congressmen and women, legislators, county executives, not just in Broome County, throughout all of New York State. People who are, and candidates for every elected office, because everyone needs to be heard. Everyone deserves the opportunity to be heard, and then the public gets to make the choice. And I think that's important. Mike Marshall mentions George Orwell predicted this in his book 1984. Well, the movie Metropolis also taught us about it. And that's a silent film. So I'm not surprised by that. And I see that Kevin Dyer has joined us, and I see Bob Seymour is watching as well. Thank you, guys. You catch me literally at the end. But, by the way, I should mention for everyone that if you've missed any part of this, I will be reposting it on the No Soundbites Allowed podcast, so you'll be able to see and hear it all there. Whether or not Facebook allows it to be seen, you'll still have a way to be able to hear this, and you'll be able to make comments. And I'm always, always, always open to comments and criticisms, because I value you and your thoughts, and it's the only way that I can get better is by hearing what you have to say. And the only way I can learn by hearing what you have to say and say, you know what? Am I right? Am I wrong? Can I do this better? So I thank you for that. And I see Kelly Wildener says, great job, Michael. Thank you. Thank you very much. But with that, I want to take a moment. I want to eat some dinner, and I'll be working on my video from the event today at the Greater Binghamton Sports Center with Congresswoman Claudia Tenney. And you can look forward to seeing that very shortly. And, Mike Marshall says something just before I'm gone. You always do a great job presenting this information. Thank you. But you're very welcome, Michael. Thank you for the compliment. And with that, everyone, on the high note, on a very serious subject we've talked about today, a lot of serious things. I thank everyone for being with me and giving me your time. I appreciate it. I thank you for it. You're all wonderful people. Share it. Give me feedback. I'm always willing to hear everything you have to say. But until the next podcast, I want to say thank you. Have a great weekend. Enjoy yourselves. Be safe. And I hope to see you again very, very soon. Thank you, everyone.